All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Crew Show with a little Golden State Warrior video. And the Warriors finally were active in free agency, adding a player, Cory Joseph, the veteran point guard, was signed. Interesting move on a lot of fronts. Let's talk about Joseph a little bit. Um, this guy played for Texas. He's got ideal size for a point guard in the NBA. He's a little bit over 6'3" in shoes with about a 6'5.5" wingspan. And he's a good athlete, well-rounded athlete. He's got good speed with the ball in his hands. He's aggressive in transition. He's got solid strength. He's really known as a strong perimeter shooter. He's a natural spot up shooter, both in the mid range and in long range. He's got in college he shot 41%. I think he's coming off a year where he shot roughly 39% from beyond the arc. So he's a shooter. There's no question, and he's an adequate passer. He's nothing spectacular, but he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. He averaged over 2 assists per turnover in college. He's not a guy that doesn't take care of the ball. He does take care of the ball. He doesn't turn it over a lot. He gets his teammates involved. He's a veteran player at this point. He's very much a team player. He's not a selfish player. This guy plays well with other players, and he's going to play well off the bench. Now, he came out of Texas probably a little early. He probably could have developed a little bit more of his point guard skills had he stayed there. So he's been more of a role player, kind of a combo 1-2 in the NBA, probably more along the lines of a point guard than a two guard. But he's not the best distributor of all time. He's more of a spot up shooter. But he gives you an honest effort on the defensive end of the floor. He's a real solid defender. Rick Barnes, his college coach, called him the best defensive guard he's ever had. And just the other thing to like about Cory Joseph is he's just a real solid guy, solid person, impressive character, veteran who's been around the league, very mature guy who's going to add a lot of maturity to their bench. So he came out of college as a very green prospect for sure. And if he had stayed in college, I kind of think he would have developed his point guard skills a little bit more than he has. So right now, I mean, he's a point guard, but more of a point guard in name only. He's much more of a shooter than a scorer. He's much more of a shooter than a distributor. He's just raw as a pure on the ball point guard, floor general. He's more of a combo guard than a true point guard. And it's partly because he never was the primary ball handler at Texas. He shared ball handling responsibilities at UT for Barnes, and never was like kind of had the whole show to himself. He definitely has got good shooting numbers outside the arc. His shooting numbers from two were just kind of mediocre, but he's got potential as a playmaker. He's got potential as a distributor. He's got potential as a combo guard. He should give the Warriors some depth behind Steph Curry and another point guard. If they're very point guard heavy. If you look at their roster right now, obviously you got Steph and you got 38-year-old Chris Paul, and now you got Cory Joseph. So they're very deep at point guard, so deep that it almost begs the question, makes you wonder if the acquisition of Cory Joseph will lead to another trade that sends Chris Paul or one of the other Warriors guards packing, going somewhere else. The Warriors did lose Jordan Poole. They also lost Dante DiVincenzo. So they need, guys who know how to play, who can play multiple spots, positionless basketball, who can play a little one, play a little two, play off the bench, and be efficient players that you can count on. And a guy like Cory Joseph is exactly that. He's an efficient player. There's greater talents everywhere. There's more explosive point guards. There's guys who get guys involved a little bit better, but he'll give them some points. He'll give them, a try-hard defender. He'll give them a good team defender. He'll give them a guy who can take care of the basketball, doesn't turn it over, isn't wild with the ball. I mean, just looking at where the Warriors were last year with Poole and now bringing in Chris Paul and now Cory Joseph, the Warriors are going to be a lot more solid on the ball. They're not going to turn the ball over nearly as much. They're not going to be as reckless with the basketball, and all those unforced turnovers that came from Poole and not having a pure, second point guard Now they legitimately have 3-point guards. Now, are all three going to stay on the roster? I don't know. Steph's going nowhere. I would imagine Joseph's going nowhere. The question is Chris Paul and his $30 million expiring deal, is he going to stay here and play here this year, as they made it seem when they made that trade? Or are they going to move him on in another deal to bring in a bigger bodied guy? I did find it interesting that I think most Warrior fans were expecting the Warriors to go after a big, either a stretch 4 or a traditional 5 to round out their roster. And, there's talk that they're going to sign Dario Saric. Saric is, 6'9", 6'10". He can shoot the basketball, but he's kind of a forward, not really a center. They're a little thin at center, but, Trace Jackson Davis is really more of a center than a power forward. I could see him being the backup, maybe the primary backup to Kevon Looney. Maybe they won't bring in another backup big man. The talk is that the Warriors are one of 6 teams that has interest in Malik Beasley. And Beasley's what, a 6'4", 6'5", 2 guard who can, definitely give them some offense off the bench, but he's not that front court player that a lot of people think that they're seeking at this point. So it does make you think when you hear the interest in Beasley, the interest in Eric Gordon, who went to Phoenix at the last second and spurned the Warriors, the interest in Shake Milton, the interest now in the signing of Cory Joseph, the interest in Malik Beasley. It does make me think that the Warriors are going to move either Klay Thompson or, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, maybe Chris Paul. I think one of those guys for sure is going to be moving in a trade as they try to get a little bigger in this trade. So there's a lot of talk that Pascal Siakam's out there. There's a lot of talk that Karl Anthony Towns is out there. Some of these guys have huge contracts that teams would like to get out from underneath. There's talk about the Clippers still wanting Chris Paul. Would they move off of Paul George in a deal for Chris Paul and Jonathan Kuminga? Would the Warriors make that deal? There's a lot of up in the air stuff at this point, but I don't think the Warriors are done. I think they're going to add something more significant than just one more minimum player outside of Dario Saric. If their minimums are Dario Saric, Cory Joseph, and Malik Beasley, they could do worse for sure. But it does make them a very small basketball team for the most part. And I thought at the end of the year, the game plan was get bigger, get more size, more defensive rebounding ability, give them a little bit more size up front. And thus far, we haven't seen it. But now when you're seeing them connected to so many guards, it does make me wonder if they have a deal in place to send Klay or Paul somewhere for a big man. And that I think could be coming. So that's, if you say, what's your primary takeaway from the Warriors signing Cory Joseph? Nice bench player that can be counted on to be a combo guard, give you a little offense, give you a little defense, play off the bench, very respectable player, roughly a 40% 3-point shooter, try hard defender, good team defender, knows how to play the game. So there's a lot of traits that are likable. But then when you look at the blend, you say, well, wait a second. Why are they interested in so many guards? Why are they kicking tires on Beasley? Why did they go after Eric Gordon? Why did they show interest in Shake Milton? A lot of these guys seem like almost redundant parts, especially since you just drafted Podziemski out of Santa Clara. And, you've already got Steph and Klay and Gary Payton and Chris Paul all, lined up to play significant minutes in the backcourt. I'm not sure how a Cory Joseph necessarily fits in. But if Joseph is here as a prelude to a Chris Paul deal for a big man, if he's here as a prelude to a bigger deal that could send, Klay Thompson and or Jonathan Kuminga packing for a Pascal Siakam, that could be the kind of move that could be the move that they're really pointing to with a signing like this of Cory Joseph. Overall, it's a nice addition to their bench. I'll say this, though. Even I like Dario Saric, and I think Cory Joseph is a pretty smart player. I really like TJD, and I think Podziemski's nice. But that's what they've done thus far does not, and then the re-signing of Draymond Green, in my opinion, doesn't make them a title contender. But it does make me think when they're going after all these guards that they may try to move a guard for a big man here in the next week or so. All right, hope you enjoyed our video on Cory Joseph. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show, and thanks to all of you for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.